I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Oscar Films. And this week we're going to be looking at the 1970 class of Oscar winners. That's movies that came out in 1970, and it's a very interesting year, especially because this is the year after a very transitionary year, which we'll be talking about next week, of the 1969 Oscars. But similar to those Oscars, very much a transition into this new decade, into the new style of filmmaking that will sort of dominate American filmmaking for many years to come. And I think some of the movies are emblematic of that, and some of the movies are a little bit different. But it's a very interesting year for sure. So if you're new to the show, what I do every single week is I look at a class of Oscar movies that were nominated for Best Picture. I look at all the movies and I pick one that I think has maybe been forgotten, one that has not been talked about or well remembered as much and not recommended to me and not sort of had essays written about it and things like that. And I sort of ask the central question as to, why has this been forgotten? I give my thoughts to the film. A lot of these films I haven't ever seen before because I haven't even heard of them. So I'll watch them, I give some of my thoughts. I also do sort of an Oscar sort of history breakdown of the 5 nominees because it's so crucial to understand why a film has either held up or not held up or stayed relevant because of the time and why was this movie nominated for an Oscar at the time? What was sort of its reputation, and did that reputation sort of deceive us even at the time? So let's start with the 5 nominees. The first nominee, which ended up winning Best Picture, is Patton. This is about an American war general who's sort of unorthodox, I guess you would say, in his time. Kind of an anti-establishment sort of movie because it's very much about a man in the war trying to do some different ways, different techniques, and then sort of being bogged down by bureaucracy. Really phenomenal role by George C. Patton, although very American, maybe sort of works there for 4th of July. Maybe you watched it yesterday because of that reason. But this is actually sort of a clear in the way winner because it had a lot of the guilds and sort of that support, and it was actually not necessarily early in the race, but more early than say late December release. So it did have some of the momentum of building up sort of great critical acclaim. And actually, another one of these big winners that we've been seeing more and more common, where it won 7 Oscars at the night. And I decided, as I'm doing this series, I'm noticing that if you win, Best Picture, for example, there have been a couple exceptions for The Godfather, things like that, but a lot of times, especially as we're going into the 60s now, if you win Best Picture, you want everything. You want technical stuff, you want acting stuff, you want writing, you want, picture, director. So you ended up getting 7 or 8 Oscars if you were the big winner. I mean, even going back to Ben-Hur or Lawrence of Arabia, these are 10, 11 Oscar winner movies. But now, because of the introduction of the preferential ballot, which was introduced in 2009, I started looking at some of the Oscars and how the Best Picture winner, ultimately how many wins did they get. And the first year it was introduced, which was the Hurt Lock year, that was the most an Oscar winner won from that time, which was 6, which is even less than Patton. And then a few years later, The Artist got 5. But as we start to more develop the preferential ballot, it becomes much more of a big deal. We're noticing, that's really the least disliked kind of movie wins in a lot of cases. And some movies like Moonlight wins 3 Oscars total, including Best Picture. Spotlight is the craziest one, where it won Best Writing and then Best Picture. It's crazy to think that the Best Picture winner would only win 2 Oscars. So that's sort of, but that, that's different today. But looking back here, excuse me. You have to realize, sort of, if you're winning a lot of these technical awards and having technical nominations does really help you in the long run, where, the conventional thinking was maybe Roma would win last year because it had all these technical nominations that say, Green Book didn't. It had support from the technical branch, but Green Book did ultimately win. It got that editing nomination, which was maybe a little bit more crucial. So there's all these factors that told you something back in the day but didn't nowadays, so you have to always adapt because of this preferential ballot, because of the changing academy and changing times. You have to stay on top of these things like that. So that was Patton. Another, just an observation I made, another nominee was 5 Easy Pieces. This is another film that I'd already seen, so I didn't want to cover it. Definitely not Jack Nicholson's most famous movie, but definitely is sort of an encapsulation of the American youth at that time. I also think that it has a recognizable scene that has been recommended to me, and one that's sort of been talked about, which is when Jack Nicholson's character in the movie, he's at a dinner and wants a substitution on a sandwich, but there's no substitutions. And there's this great metaphor of how it's just standing up to sort of the existing establishment. In a lot of ways, similar to that in an anti-establishment movie, and Jack Nicholson was sort of seen as sort of the young, relatable star at that time, almost like a Ethan Hawke with the Gen X with the reality bites. In that generation, Jack Nicholson for this one. I guess baby boomers, you would say, was really sort of a signifier for sure. And then, so I didn't want to cover that. Another nominee was Airport, which we talked about a bit in the Towering Inferno episode, sort of the whole 70s disaster phenomenon. This really started it off. A bit of a surprise nomination. It actually got 10, tying the record for most nominations with Patton. Not the record for tying the most amount of nominations that year with Patton, and it sort of came out of nowhere because it didn't get a lot of guild support, which is interesting. But I already covered it a bit on the Towering Inferno episode, so I didn't want to cover it. And then MASH was another nominee, and commenter last week mentioned, Robert I believe, mentioned that MASH may be the one I was going to cover because a lot of people didn't realize that MASH was a movie before it was a TV show. Most people, I think its cultural legacy is as a TV show. However, it is from acclaimed director Robert Altman, so if you are a film buff, you do know about Robert Altman and do want to explore some of his films. Plus, I already seen MASH, and also it did make a lot of money at the box office. So it was box office hit at the time, so it was a huge successful TV show, so it's an IP that I think if it brought back, people would still remember it. However, with Love Story, it actually made more money than MASH, yet nobody really remembers it. I don't remember it. I haven't been recommended it. Maybe it was something that you saw, but for some reason or another, hasn't been, I think, evangelized, you would say. At the time, it was one of the highest grossing movies of all time, right behind Gone with the Wind. I mean, it was a huge success. I think right now it has fallen, but it's bigger than the first Spider-Man movie. It's almost as big as Avengers Infinity War. It's crazy to think this sort of blandly titled love story about this sort of, traditional romance has such a long-standing box office success, yet I never heard of it. So transitioning to my thoughts, I think it's sort of a bit of a mixed bag, unfortunately. There were certain aspects, of course, that I enjoyed, and other aspects that just didn't grab me and didn't grab a hold of me that I was really emotionally invested by the end of it. I do enjoy sort of Ryan O'Neal's character and his performance. I also enjoyed his father subplot. That's a sort of a key character motivation. I think sometimes really gets just explained and explored. Sometimes it could be a trite sort of, the rich parent not telling you what to do and it's forceful. That maybe doesn't hold up all that well today because we've seen so much of it. That being said, I still think they explore that well in sort of legacy and your family history and how you want to rise above that in a lot of ways. But when your family's already so rich, you in a sense almost get treated unfairly in some certain senses. But also, I really enjoy the sort of the beginning part, that sort of initial love, the infatuation of it, the sort of quippy dialogue that they were able to pull out with has some interesting lines. But unfortunately, I just never really connected fully to Ali McGraw's character, just because I thought her performance maybe it just didn't get the full way there for me, because I never believed she was this character, more of she's saying the lines. So that when the film really does, at the halfway point, really shift very heavily into sentimentality, I never really sort of was fully on board at that point, so I never really was fully emotionally invested in all of them. Even though I like that thought, and plus also I like the subplot of the father, but I felt like it wasn't necessarily showing its emotional payoff and its emotional journey. We sort of forget about it at the end, which I thought was maybe a mistake, because I think that was a large portion of Ryan O'Neal's character, Oliver Barrett, his character motivation and his motivating force, and not that his motivations aren't allowed to change, but I thought this was an integral part of his story that was sort of sidelined for a bit of a large portion of the movie. It was sort of a hit or miss experience. It has a great score. Especially for a music major, you thought you would use pre-existing music, classical music maybe, but there's some really great sort of piano melodies here I didn't want to mention. Unfortunately, it just didn't fully grab me. So I guess we'll transition now into Why It's Been Forgotten. I do want to say that's kind of a generic title, love story. I wouldn't. Um, I can't see a movie being titled that nowadays would get so much of the money at the box office. You know, for me, there's some of the stars. You know, I know Ryan O'Neal because he had a time in the '70s, Barry Lyndon, Paper Moon. But really, he hasn't maybe transitioned into a great late career. He has been sort of more someone I didn't know. But Ally McGraw is definitely a name I've heard of, but not one, like I said, that has transitioned later into life in regards to um, acclaim and acting. Like, you know, a George C. Scott did, he was already late in his life, but a Jack Nicholson did, for example. Has transitioned now late into his life with doing so many great roles. He is now a household name. But maybe, you know, it could be just a movie where it wasn't that great of a movie in the first place. Maybe it was a swooning romance for a lot of people that came out at the right time, and that's what people wanted to see at the time. But maybe, you know, that's something we haven't really even discussed about sometimes, is that sometimes it's been forgotten because it's forgettable, because it doesn't have a long-lasting impact on you. But so it was interesting to see this getting nominated for Best Picture. But like I said, this was a time of the Best Pictures where they wanted to nominate the highest-grossing movie of the year, and Love Story was the highest-grossing movie of the year, and they consistently do that throughout the '70s, and I'm sure they're going to do that into the '60s, where nowadays that never happens. So at one hand, you know, you want to nominate the movie that everyone saw because everyone saw it and clearly had an impact on film culture. But also, a lot of times, some of these movies aren't super great, the highest grossing movies of all time. So, in a lot of ways, you want to nominate the best movies. So, there's sort of a contradictory sort of push and pull there. So, maybe this was sort of caught in the 1 year where it wasn't one of the best movies. But then I think, like Star Wars, if it came out today, would never be nominated for Best Picture, even if it was a massive hit like it is. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you want to see next week for 1969 or 1968. I think I have 1969 covered because that's a really important year in Oscar history. I've already sort of been workshopping that script. So I hope you enjoy that episode and stay tuned to next week because it's a very interesting Oscar year. Probably, I know I say that every episode because I think they're all interesting, but this one's a historical moment, I'll say that. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoy the episode. And until next time, stay tuned.